station reported a distress signal last night. They think it came from your dad's ship.
The signal, it came from past the outer ring. How is that even possible?
His ship has been reported missing for 20 years now. Pretty sure he's not coming back.
We go there, we might not come back.
What is this place?
This is going to change everything. They found out we have the map. They're gonna kill us for it.
If that's the case, there's only one thing we can do.
So the metaverse, folks, is going to change the world. The metaverse is going to create a kind of speciation. The metaverse will be an incarnation of what John Smart calls the transcension hypothesis. The metaverse is the future of the human race. You see, there's been this simultaneous expansion that characterizes human history. We've been expanding outwards, conquering more land, exploring more territory, right? More Earth, and then the moon, and then into space. But there's been this other expansion, this inner expansion, that's been going straight into digital universes, right? Denser and denser computational substrates, until eventually we might open up femtoscale densities of computation where metaverses can be moved into. We can download or upload our minds into the machine. We'll become like ghosts in the machine. And perhaps the greatest intersection of these spaces of outward expansion and inward expansion is embodied by Star Atlas. Star Atlas is a new metaverse, a metaverse that invites you to explore space through digital means, right? It's going to open up the final frontier, the intergalactic frontier, powered by inner expansion through ones and zeros, a digital metaverse to free our minds beyond the pale blue dot. This is how we get off this rock. And Star Atlas, again, is an ontological awakening, in the words of Ross Anderson, a forceful reckoning with what is and what might be. It's going to allow us to stargate beyond the bounds of the imagination, to literally become starlight. This metaverse will augment our minds and augment our world and finally allow us to show ourselves to ourselves. For as Carl Sagan said, we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. But so far we've had no means to explore that cosmos. But finally, through the metaverse, through Star Atlas, this becomes real. We get to go, right? Because as they say, you've got to go there to know there. Well, with Star Atlas, you get to go there so you may know there. So everyone around the world, powered by decentralized blockchain technologies, will be able to literally craft an identity in which they expand beyond their horizons inside the Star Atlas universe, and that will have bleed-through effects into the meat space. If you become successful in Star Atlas, thanks to the power of blockchain, you'll have monetary finances in the real world that will in turn be thrown back into Star Atlas and further expands its universe. So that's where we're heading. Welcome to the metaverse. Welcome to Star Atlas. In the words of D.H. Lawrence, may we free the brave, reckless gods within us all. I'm Jason Silva, and I support this message.
Michael, co-founder and CEO of Star Atlas.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for making up the time. I think you are in US. Yeah, we're a little bit early here in Bali. We have the Southeast Asia community mostly, and that's why, you know, it's our early morning, but there's a lot of excited people join us. Yeah, we have a few questions, like, for example, because Star Atlas not built in one day, right? So it's already a longer ongoing process. And we would like to know what was the inspiration like for you a few years ago when Play to Earn was really like a very underdog. There was not really many people talking about, and you hit actually the right spot in time, you know, when the Play to Earn space become really visible. How you envision that you with Star Atlas, and I understand the game is still under development, but how you get it like really the development on time that we have already the features what Star Atlas provide us.
I mean, it's a great question, but you know, the reality is the concept behind Star Atlas was really just conceptualized in mid 2020. Now, I think, you know, probably many people that are listening in right now know my background in traditional finance, getting introduced to crypto in 2013 through script coin mining, launching my first company in 2016. That company was at the intersection of crypto and cannabis, and really through that process was able to, you know, I got connected with Danny and Jacob Floyd, and we were really just analyzing what was kind of what was emerging across the space. So seeing things like NFTs come into their own. 2019 was a really fantastic year for DeFi and all of the innovation and the primitives surrounding decentralized finance. And then blockchain gaming, which we saw as still being in a really nascent stage. Kind of simplistic gameplay mechanics, gameplay pillars, a lot of turnstile games and card-based games, which are entertaining in their own right, but we saw an opportunity to do something bigger and better, and that was to bring what could be a AAA title and integrate that with decentralized finance and this broader blockchain ecosystem, and provide true value to players, not only in asset ownership but in the ability to earn and monetize time that they're spending within the universe. And so the idea was born in mid 2020, and we just formally debuted in January of this year, and it's really been a blockbuster year for us, but super exciting times. I think we've made some phenomenal progress over the course of the year, and I'm sure many people listening in right now are aware that we have our really big launch, arguably our biggest launch of the year, with the release of Tier 0 ship missions, which we call SCORE, ship commissions on remote expeditions. So we've been in kind of mission control all day, working with the engineers and doing some final tests, final QA, and looking forward to rolling all of that feature out real soon.
That's awesome. And how, because at that time, there was the blockchain space and the gaming space. And it was, as you mentioned, card games. Still, there's new upcoming card games, but that time there was never somebody, I think, thought that guilds maybe become so important, because like myself, I was in guilds, but it was more like hanging out with people, playing, having fun, community, spending time together. How you how this you adapted it, because it's also a new space, I would say, and this is also, of course, one thing why we want to partner with Star Atlas, because I think you offer opportunities for guilds, what is also recently, I would say, maybe summer became more in focus for any game.
Yeah, it's amazing right now to see how many guilds are I guess just emerging, and their ability to raise capital to purchase these assets. Obviously the intention is to be able to generate residual income or passive income, or really active income through the guild members, but through the various capitalization mechanisms that they're using, they're of course sharing in this reward structure with the people that are placing capital with them. Now, I want to give a lot of credit to Yield Guild Games, actually, whom we've had a close relationship with for months now. But Yield Guild and really Axie Infinity kind of brought play to earn gaming onto the scene, and this was over the course of 2020, with the pandemic kind of in its heights, and people understanding that there's a big opportunity here to work in virtual worlds and digital environments, and especially for the emerging markets, the opportunities across these ecosystems can be significantly better than their local labor opportunities. So in our case, we were heavily focused just on development of the product early in the year, and once again, giving credit where credit is due, Christian Dragnell, and I apologize if I'm getting that wrong, but he formed the Interstellar Alliance and had actually requested in our Discord channel, when there were maybe a couple of hundred people in there, 200 or 300 people, requested a guild recruiting channel, and had started recruiting people, and that led to this kind of Cambrian explosion of new guilds across Star Atlas. And what I think is really interesting about the DAX structure, though, in our case, is there's at least two different versions of DAX, and the first will be the in-game operators, so game-focused DAX. We also see a major opportunity for non-gaming DAX to exist in the future, to operate businesses and business models across the metaverse ecosystem. So things like social experiences, performances, music festivals, things like this, but also just operating traditional businesses, e-commerce effectively, that can exist inside Star Atlas. So really cool to see just how much innovation is going on right now, and just how much interest there is in external capital. So capital providers like venture capital groups coming in to invest in guilds, with the understanding that there are major opportunities here for these guilds to make money in this play to earn ecosystem.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think COVID was really a good let's say, because many people see it as a, let's say, negative point, but I see there was a lot of opportunities, if you take it in the right spot, because like anyway, people being at home, and then at the right time there came this play to earn, let's say, revolution, as you say. I think Axie Infinity kicked it off really for the not mainstream yet, but it's going there. And yeah, our inspiration definitely also come from Yield Guild to start our own guild and token our DAO. And and I mean, we like as any gaming guild, like this is something what we wanted to make a difference, that we are not like only an Axie Infinity guild, because this is just the beginning. And then we saw in Startlers a huge opportunity. That's why we formed already our own let's say team, who is like, who have interest educating them on the content and on the features what is out there at the moment, because a lot of people, a lot of games, they're just still under development. And what we really like to see is that there's always something new coming, and this is really important, especially for the waiting until like the game kicks off. And how you populate players, or what's the opportunities basically in game if we have as a guild and as a community, because there's not necessarily only guilds, just player community who form maybe a group who play together Startlers. What's the like kind of special features, or what is the vision of Startlers and yourself for communities and guilds inside the game?
Well, I think that will manifest itself in a number of different ways, but let's just, focus first on the governance system across Star Atlas. So we have a kind of hierarchical structure of DAOs that exist throughout the ecosystem, starting with the Star Atlas DAO, kind of the top level master DAO, if you will, and that will drive in the long-term development and design and decision-making processes around things like in-game economics, inflation rates, emission schedules, asset release schedules, but it can also drive decisions around feature releases. So, requests for certain gameplay styles, since we are releasing this in a modular fashion. So, there's the top level DAO where people get to participate in that level of decision making, but then internally within the game economy itself, we have faction DAOs, and we have regional DAOs, and then we have the DAX system itself. This all plays into the political strategy. So kind of the expansion and contraction of the borders of each of these factions themselves, and that they'll be able to drive decisions around things like tax rates across the regions in which they're operating. And they'll also be able to drive decision making to some extent in categories like interfaction or intra-faction commerce. What I think is really interesting, though, just about, again, the way that DAX are kind of forming right now, and it is tied pretty closely to the way that we've structured the economy of the game, is that these guilds are not just collectives of players, and that's obvious because there's real financial consequences and opportunities that exist within Star Atlas. And so the guilds that are being structured right now are creating these as true companies. They're capitalizing their companies, they're organizing their personnel, they're putting people in certain positions to execute on certain activity. And I think it's pretty amazing just to see the degree of coordination that's going on, both internal to guilds, and then just more broadly again across the ecosystem. So really cool just seeing this emerge. We do believe that these collectives of players are critical to the game. They're helping us grow, they're helping us educate the community. Big shout out to all of the guilds out there. I've seen a significant degree of generosity and different giveaways and promotions and events that they're hosting. And this is the type of inspiration and innovation that we can spur in this decentralized community that we all operate in. I think it's extremely cool. People are motivated to go out and recruit new players for themselves and also into Star Atlas and present this opportunity. And we've so far provided a very minimal tool set that these DAX can leverage, and they're already running with it. So yourselves included. And so we're just super appreciative that there's this level of interest already, and impressed with, again, the degree of coordination that's going on. across all of these stacks.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think for us, so what we really enjoy on Startless is because it's not like a one type gameplay, like the fraction, as you already mentioned. It's like if you don't need to necessarily the heavy player, the fighter or anything like that, because in Startless, for example, you can be in the minor fraction, and then your main goal is more like getting resources for the ecosystem, and this is something really cool feature, because as a player or as a community, as you mentioned, you recruit people based on their abilities. So not everybody is a heavy competitive player, or like like, let's say someone who want to invade the planet. No, it's like more like, okay, I want to be like part of the ecosystem and supporting the bigger goal, like the fraction or the Stardust itself. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the different fractions in the game, how they differentiate from each other?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, this is a question that's really better directed at Danny. I defer to him a lot when it's really gameplay style specific questions. And we've got a really fantastic leadership team and co-founding team, and really the team overall is just it's incredibly talented. But what I can mention is that there are three factions: the Oni, the Mud, and the Ooster. Oni being a group of alien races, Mud being the human race, and then Ooster is a sentient android being. Now, with that being said, that's kind of the broad division of how the faction started. But in the year 2620, where the game takes place, all of the races are kind of commingled across every one of the factions. So where there will be some differences is in competitive advantages and disadvantages that are specific to each one of the factions. And so we would see that play out in things like material extraction or mineral extraction from planets and from land resources. There's going to be higher densities of certain materials in one faction than the other, but the objective that we have is to ensure that there's a consistent balance. But this drives things like competitiveness for borders, but also will actually lead to some degree of necessary intra-faction commerce, simply because you can't obtain all of the resources in the same quantities that you'd be able to obtain had you been operating in one of the other factions.
Yeah, that's thank you for that answer. Because you mentioned the team, can you maybe talk a little bit about? You said that you have an amazing team. Anyway, I believe what you delivered so far it's outstanding. Like, who is, like, especially for gameplay or game design, the token economics, the ecosystem, who was there the main driving force, or like what is their background? What's the inspiration, to make it like not just a card game, the AAA title, what we are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's we're all gamers at heart as well. We've, I think many people know my background growing up in a gaming group, back before broadband was available. We called ourselves the Lanarchists, and we spent our weekends not partying and drinking, but rather bringing our computers to someone's house and networking them together and playing multiplayer games like Doom and Quake and Half-Life and Counter-Strike. That's how we spent our entire weekend. So I'm a longtime gamer. Danny is, Jacob is. And Pablo is the fourth co-founder, but we all have a passion and enthusiasm for gaming first and foremost. And so just in terms of division of responsibilities, Danny's the chief product officer and largely the visionary behind the actual gameplay pillars and gameplay mechanics and game design. A fantastic team beneath him of artists and technical directors, art directors. I'd mention here maybe Jonathan Berube as well, who was pivotal in the creation of that Star Atlas, both teaser trailer as well as the cinematic trailer that everyone's largely seen now. Jacob Floyd is chief technology officer, and his kind of right-hand man is Michael Liu as a technical lead. Between the two of them, they're managing multiple squads across web development, blockchain development, DevOps, and missing one there, and I'm blanking on it right now, but and then Pablo's on the chief revenue side as chief revenue officer, and so he drives things like strategic partnerships, He was deeply involved with the Rebirth campaign, identifying artists that we could partner with, so Blondish and Bassjackers and Deadmau5, and facilitating some of those relationships, but also marketing comms and public relations. So big shout out here to Santi as well as our community lead. I think many of you know him. Matej Mavic is our head of comms and creates and writes a lot of the content that you're all reading, including the newsletter and all of our Medium articles. And then my emphasis was really on the economic side and finance side. So driving a lot of the design of the tokenomics initially, and being pretty deeply involved in the game economic design, just from a more of a traditional modeling standpoint.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, because this is something what I like in this space is that basically all of us, they have kind of gamer background. It's like, so we couldn't make a living, let's say, with gaming that time, because like for myself, I'm 36 now. 20 years ago, there was no Twitch. There was not really. There was LAN tournaments. You go with your computer, and you have to be the elite at the moment in the traditional gaming market to make maybe a living from gaming. And my personal inspiration, you mentioned Doom, Half-Life, Counter-Strike. Yes, I know all the titles, but for me, just on that note, Diablo 2 was basically my inspiration for cryptocurrency, because the community was building actually a currency inside the game, just based, like, I wouldn't say a DAO, because at the time all these things doesn't exist, but the community was a ring. It's called Stone of Jordan, and this became the in-game currency, like out of from the close community from Diablo 2, and that was super exciting times. Anyway, the game was awesome, and I also talked with some of even Jesse from Kraken. That was his inspiration to start cryptocurrency. So like, because of that Stone of Jordan in Diablo 2. So I can say I live my dream. It's really like to build up something here in the space, and maybe it's also my class. I was usually in games like a healer, supporter, World of Warcraft, whatever, and the guild is now like a supporting tool. I see, while we had also our fundraising, like the VCs, they're looking for games and they're looking for guilds, because it goes hand in hand somehow in the ecosystem in that space. So yeah, we're happy that we can contribute and be part of the big picture. And there is one big question I think for every game is like how you onboard, because you mentioned already in the beginning, there's all these people who are usually never been in touch with crypto. So what's the onboarding, or what's your to make it easy, accessible, and safe for these onboarding players? Is it free to play? Is it pay to win? Is it you need to have NFTs to play the game? What is Startless envision that?
Well, I think clearly we're outside of the model of pay to win and free to play. We've definitely moved into the play to earn, which does have the NFT holding requirement, but also, you're able to unlock accessibility through things like lending models, right? Lending protocols where people can borrow assets, pay a small fee, share in some of the earnings, and still have access to the game. We also approached our economic model from the standpoint of inclusiveness. And so, a very wide range in pricing, very inexpensive assets that virtually anyone should be able to purchase and build wealth over time, and maybe reinvest back into themselves and purchase bigger ships or purchase more land, participate in more of the gameplay loops that will enable them to earn more in the long term, ultimately compounding that wealth into the ability for them to create consistent income for themselves over time. Clearly a lot of variabilities in those income levels, simply because we operate in crypto markets, which are volatile in nature. But nevertheless, from the economic modeling standpoint, that is how we see people growing their own wealth and asset base over time, and being able to participate in that true ownership economy. In terms of onboarding new users, I've mentioned this quite a bit, but we very rapidly outpaced our go-to-market strategy, which was targeting initially the more of a crypto native, or at least crypto experienced user. people that had operated with MetaMask on Ethereum, or using some of the web plugin wallets on Solana. Our kind of recommended wallet is Phantom, but we were looking at people who understood the security, understood the volatility, knew how to interact with these markets, and knew how to interact with these Web3 protocols. Very, very quickly, interest in the game from the traditional gamer ramped up and escalated. And so I like to, maybe the softest heuristic that we can use is just our Discord following relative to our Telegram following. Telegram, in my opinion, historically has been the place where a lot of crypto communities centralize and coordinate and communicate. Discord, naturally is very much a gamer's platform. And so, looking at the 138,000 or so people that we have in Discord relative to 50,000 on Telegram indicates to me that we have a much larger traditional gamer following. Our objectives going into next year are to provide more information and education into surrounding things like blockchain execution and operation and security, also targeting scams and getting those taken down as quickly as possible, and really trying to provide the user with a very clean, seamless, and intuitive on-ramp into the game that would include things like tutorials. So, very much step by step, this is how you start and this is how you get access to the game. Obviously, we'd like to get to that point sooner than later, but we're also heavily focused on the actual development of the product right now as well. And so it's just balancing those things out, scaling the team appropriately so that we can execute on that. But, ultimately in the future, it will be very much about education. Now, where I think we have an advantage, once again, is that all of the DACs right now, while in anticipation of the game release, are actively out there promoting to new users and helping new users. And the people across our Discord have been incredibly beneficial to us and helpful to us in that they're out there responding to the community's questions. So just love seeing the interactions and the kind of generosity of time that people are sharing with others to help them get up to speed on how to participate in Star Atlas.
Yeah, that's it. I think definitely education, development, and communities. This is, I think, a big part for especially next year, because we will have all these new players. If I see our statistics, we have like 70% of really non-crypto experience. And we as a guild also see it as an obligation, that we need to educate them. So we have also tutorials, like security, scam, and all that stuff. With, as you mentioned, tutorials, how to use the wallet, what you don't download, like random stuff. Like there was and there's still like crypto. There's still all this, let's say, pirates, they're trying to get a piece of that. Of course, this is not sustainable, but yeah, and to protect the people also, this is kind of, I think, and give them a safe environment. I think this is really a focus. And I think especially also Solana, because this is something, one of my favorite blockchains. We're not on Solana, but definitely we're looking for ways also to integrate Solana. What made you choose Solana? What was the key factor? Because also being kind of, I would say, a new blockchain, and to get a new game to a new blockchain, what was basically could maybe a potential risk? Maybe Solana is not as good as maybe from critics or whatever. But again, why you choose Solana basically?
Yeah, I mean, it was there was several factors in making that decision. I mean, first and foremost was the underlying tech capable of scaling to a very large user base? And we're thinking not in the hundreds of thousands or millions, but hundreds of millions to billions of users that would potentially be interacting with Star Atlas in the metaverse in the distant future. 7, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, we could see this massive degree of scalability of interest in operating in these virtual worlds. So, Solana checked a lot of the boxes. High transaction throughput, in my opinion, one of the most decentralized layer 1 protocols that operates on a unique consensus mechanism that is, in some ways comparable to delegated proof of stake. Now it's actually proof of history with kind of a proof of stake type parallelization of transaction processing, but also low latency on the network, so sub-second finality, low lag on state changes to the network itself, and then low transaction costs. So those were all critically important. The team behind it come from a high pedigree of technology companies like Qualcomm, but I would say almost more than that is we thought the tech was promising. It had some great institutional endorsements from teams like the FTX and Alameda Research in the development of Project Serum and the consortium behind the decentralized exchange protocol. But we actually saw an opportunity to be early to Solana and to collaborate early, and it played out quite well for us. We saw Solana wildly successful this year. We probably drove some of that success and some of that attention to them, but very early on, they were willing to support us because it was, we were one of maybe 25 or 30 projects that were openly developing on the Solana ecosystem. And so they were very proactive in helping to promote us to their native community, which really bootstrapped the growth of ours. And we were able to leverage that momentum and continue to grow our community itself. So quite a few things at play, but I always say this, I think it was one of the best decisions that we made though, in the planning of this company.
Yeah, I think so. Like true pioneers. Yeah, like this is a very new space, and taking let's say the first decisions in that space. I think it's a pretty can be difficult decisions, but I think you have the right view on the whole. It's a long-term race. It's not a short-term decision, and choosing the right network for that. And yeah, I think Solana and what you established with Startler so far, it's really incredible. And so for going back to the let's say to the game, what would you say is a good entry? Like for example, for players, do they need to have necessarily a starship? And then what is their land? Because land is also a big feature, right? In the metaverse space, is there any features planned like that? And I know that's a lot of question in one take.
Sure.
But also, what is the next roadmap goals for Startlers?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I answer that, I apologize for the dead space, but the sun's going down quite quickly on me. Let me go hit a light really quickly, and I'll be right back to answer that question.
Sure, no problem. Yeah. And in that taking that moment, I hope everybody who's in the live stream, I hope you enjoy. It's a pleasure to have Michael here, and please, if you have questions, you can talk to Remy and Francis, and we have a few community questions also later on. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, great. So in terms of game development, it's important to point out that we are really developing across two separate environments and two concurrent tracks. And so the first of those is really our beta testing proving grounds for all of our on-chain programs, all of the smart contracts that contain the logic that will actually execute functions within the game. It's both the kind of fundamental basis of the economics, but also the way that people are able to execute gameplay mechanics across Star Atlas. This is one of the things that really differentiates us, by the way, because a lot of the games that are arising in this blockchain gaming sector are not so much blockchain games, I would say. They're traditional games that integrate things like NFTs. In some cases, they integrate digital currencies, but they're still functioning entirely in a traditional game engine. Now, in our case, we're actually building the logic on chain once again, and this is how we rolled out Score. So all of the initial gameplay features in our roadmap are going to be executed and delivered first in a web-based mini game. And so that's where Score is rolling out. It's through our marketplace. It's play.staratlas.com. And in terms of the roadmap, just on those initial features, it will be ship missions tier 0, which is Score, and then we roll into mining operations. So this is something that we call more. It's mining operation and resource extraction. That leads into the crafting gameplay loop, where players will be able to eventually do things like craft their own resources that actually are utilized across the Score system. They'll be able to craft modules and components that go onto ships and they'll even be able to craft their own NFTs. This is all going to roll out in time. And then an extension of that would be the orbital space stations, which are complementary assets to your land, and then ultimately delivering the namesake of the game, the Star Atlas, which is the 3D coordinate system that represents all of the locations of all of the assets and space stations and everything across the universe. A universe which will be constantly expanding, by the way, as the user base continues to grow. So the way we're kind of modeling that is to develop out regions of space based on the anticipated number of users, and then, over time, reflecting back on what growth looks like, then creating opportunities to grow regions so that everyone has an opportunity to enter and play. Now, on the other track, we're building out the fully immersive world in Unreal Engine. We have an independent roadmap on that, but the way that we're structuring this gameplay, once again, is that the core features that roll out through the web app will inherently be accessible through the fully immersive world as well. And so the first module that's going to be released in Unreal Engine is called the Showroom. By the way, we do have a really exciting treat for everyone coming out before the end of the year, but the Showroom is going to be a place where people can go in and view assets at scale. They'll be able to select through a number of assets, ultimately configure ships within that. They'll be able to interact, as I said, with all of the same features that are accessible through the mini game. But what's going to be really cool, and we did release some images recently of the different scale models of all of these different classes of ships, but you'll be able to walk through these, explore the interiors, explore the ships, and then if you decide you want to purchase it, have the ability to purchase those and configure them as well. And so, target date right now is sometime probably early Q2 for a fully immersive world release. And then ultimately that would also transition into multiplayer modals of the Showroom where people can participate in social activity as well. From there, it's really just continuously iterating on those same core gameplay mechanics. So enhancing ship missions from ship enlistment to real ship missions where the user is interactive with decision-making as they're exploring space, enhancements on more, enhancements on orbital space stations, and so on and so forth.
Thank you for the insights. And I think from gameplay side, and I think that's super awesome that you looking for strengthening or building a real economy, because what I see in most play to earn space, it's mostly like grinding. It's like you grinding, and it creates a lot of let's say sell pressure. Because the asset is basically just it's basically a payment, let's say token or whatever. It's an in-game asset, and this is something what we really looking for. And I think this is for the sustainability of the play to earn space, to have a strong in-game economy and developing it. It's like let's say it's like a country. Like you need to have certain people who contribute this, gas, electricity, like stuff like that. And I think that will be definitely, and I see, what you already established, I think this is a big feature. And do you have any, like, for the tokenomics, like, I understand we already talked about it, but especially there, is this a big focus? Did the token economy or the ecosystem grow together with the game, or was there first the ecosystem and then the game, or it came both together?
So I would suggest that we put major emphasis on economics right from the start, understanding that, to your exact point, if you want to create a sustainable economy in the long term, then you better put some strategic planning and modeling in place in advance of actually rolling out. That's not to say that we're going to get it perfect. There is really no way to predict the way that the global community is going to interact within our economy in advance, but we are going to be extremely proactive and then reactive to consequences of gameplay mechanics that we roll out and how that impacts the economy and how that impacts tokenomics. To your point, I'm in complete agreement that this is going to function very much like a nation state or a sovereign state. So a country, right? It's an independent entity with its own national domestic currency that is Atlas. It has governance function as well. And again, the economics themselves will be impacted by many variables in which we'll be introducing, as well as just human sentiment, which is creates a very challenging equation. But fortunately, we're working with some great advisors, and we're scaling up our economic team internally. And it's what I would kind of argue is that if the two core mandates that we have and objectives that we have are first to create best in class, highest quality gameplay experience that's truly entertaining and enjoyable, and something that would stand on its own, that people would want to engage with and play without the financial incentives or without the blockchain mechanics at all. And so, that is where we're building out this Unreal world and kind of initially introducing that through the web app. But the second core objective is to ensure that we can create this sustainable economy in the long term, where it's not purely extractive based. And so, we've put a lot of thought into how do we drive utility and demand for each one of the tokens? How do we ensure that there is some level of stability in utilizing these assets? And one of the things that I would kind of point out, and I think, in so many ways, building a metaverse actually lends itself to creating a more sustainable economy naturally, simply because there's many more activities that people will join this virtual world for beyond just the gameplay itself. And while that's the first application we're building and the primary focus and emphasis, think about somebody that's coming in to launch a merchant location on one of the space stations. Well, that merchant still has to pay land value tax, right? They still have to pay rent or contribute back to the ecosystem. Not only are they creating a service through the sale of products that would entice new users into this environment, but they're also contributing back through the operating expense kind of system that we've built into the economy itself. Every single activity operates as kind of a micro business model, if you will. And that's the same if you're flying ships, if you're operating land equipment, or if you're operating some other business, which could be experiential or shopping based or educational, academic, whatever the case may be. And all of these things contribute back to the greater value that is the economy, leads to more user growth, which leads to greater economic activity across the entire economy.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that games, you cannot plan a token economic. It's I think same as you cannot plan a country, how it works, how it function. And this is, I think, where it's also a big plus across the games, what Startlers showed for us as a guild. We have a close communication with you and the team, and because listening then also not to your own Discord community, but also to guilds and to the player, because you don't know where is, let's say, the interest once the game really is populated by thousands of people, and then having a close communication. And I think that there's where guilds also play a big part, like getting feedback also straight, like you take your feedback, of course, this is, I think, necessary, but also guilds, and as you already mentioned, you let them contribute, like with ideas, support, what they need, what they're looking for, because you cannot plan every single thing from scratch. And but I think it's already a pretty solid what is upcoming, and what for regular players, for guilds with scholarships, or any type of player. I think it's an awesome start once the next features of the roadmap is out there, and keep it entertaining, as you mentioned. I think this is the for the long lasting of the game, this is always the key factor, fun and spending some quality time with friends, and then the bonus is a reward, and this makes the game then just more entertaining, and it was now finally it's basically available for the every player. You don't need to be elite anymore, and this is really an awesome part, especially Startlers in this space, and also for the future of the play to earn space. On that question, like, where do you see Startlers? I know it's like 5 years from now. This is too far to ask, because crypto is fast, and but where do you think or see the company in the metaverse? What role have Startlers? Because you're also kind of a role model, for as a one of the first AAA title out there. Where do you see Startlers in the metaverse, and yourself and developing that?
Well, it's kind of a bold statement, but I would say that as it stands, I think we're one of the only, if not the only, true, open, fully decentralized metaverse, or at least aspirationally, right? It's difficult for me to argue that we're fully decentralized right now, given the fact that really control and power is centralized with us. That's intentional. That's by design. We kind of understand the product that we want to build. We have a vision that we want to execute on, but the aspiration and the intention is there. And I don't think that really exists. I'll give Mark Zuckerberg some credit here in his keynote related to Meta. I think he covered a lot of the topics in the areas where the opportunities genuinely do exist. However, as a company ethos, philosophically and ideologically, we couldn't differ more, right? The ability to kind of share in the broader economy with the people that are participants and content creators and innovators, as well as having the true ownership and ultimately moving into a model where I describe the metaverse as this public open utility. Everybody should be able to have access to it and have an opportunity to create around it. And that's the direction that we're going with this. And so it's not the centralized kind of walled garden approach that most traditional or Web2 tech companies have taken. So that's very important for us, is that we can move towards decentralization over time and really genuinely introduce a censorship-resistant version of this virtual world that people can participate in perpetuity. I think, Star Atlas, what we're building is a game. Everybody obviously wants to play. We want to play, we are working on that polished final product, if you can call it that. But the reality is, this is a product that should and could evolve in perpetuity, long after the creators, the initial creators, we at Star Atlas in the studio, long after we're gone, in 50 years or 100 years, other people can continue building upon the foundation that we are laying today. So, I think this is something the world hasn't seen before, and we're looking forward to bringing it to life and making it a reality.
Yeah, very cool. I have a few questions from the community. And I know this goes more into the gameplay, but Robert Gonzalez want to know, he's a huge sci-fi fan, Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Citizen. Does the gameplay reflect any kind of these elements, from the games, from the movies? Is there something inspiration from there into the gameplay?
I would say inspiration from so many different channels, some from like the video game standpoint, games like EVE Online and Star Citizen and even Stellaris to some extent with the strategy elements. But, we talk a lot about movies like Avatar and of course, Star Wars and Star Trek, but like Fifth Element, so we're really bringing our own unique style to the sci-fi genre. I think that actually really demonstrates itself just on our website. Most sci-fi video games are very dark and cold and metal and you're out in space and you're alone and it's scary. And we've introduced light to this, right? And light to the concept. When you enter into the staratlas.com website, it's a beige site with beautiful colors that bring you through the portal into the metaverse. And so we're pulling inspiration from a lot of different movies and games that have come before, and really creating our own unique style out of that.
Oh, awesome. Sounds great. I think there's a lot. If you're right, if you go on the website, I didn't think about it, but usually, the space is dark and somewhere in the space, and then it's really reflect the light you said. And the next question is from Brianna Garcia. She is asking. She's a super fan of the project, and are there any upcoming action figures like Funko Pop? Or is there any merch what you will list? Is this only NFT, or is there also, like you mentioned already many times, the e-com? Is there something planned or coming up from the community in your direction?
There is. I can't give any guaranteed dates on when. Not necessarily like figurines, if that was the question, like action figures. I'll openly say that there's been discussions around collaborations with companies like Hasbro and Lego, and whether or not we can or want to bring any of those types of products to the world at this stage. What we are looking at is a merch line that would consist of apparel, Star Atlas apparel, like all things we do, we kind of take it over the top. And so we're not just looking at simple t-shirts, we're actually identifying partners who can deliver some of the best fabrics, the best materials, the best quality apparel lines, and the best design behind all of that. And we will be bringing that to the market eventually. So not a major emphasis for us right now, but we're exploring those as options.
So is it then more fashion clothes, or is it little astronaut suits?
Maybe some combination of both. You can kind of think there are some dedicated apparel lines to professional esports teams right now. So we're looking at very high caliber, high quality.
Yeah, we had it in one trailer before we started. There's one jacket, it's very interactive. Startler, Solana was branded. I think this is one of the expected features. We will see how the technology also goes, how, you see all these virtual reality clothes at the moment is all over the scene. So I think it's an interesting space, and you cannot decide now what is the end product because there's so many things happening. Then from Robert Gonzalez, you have a question. So because it's you wanted to bring light into the space, but is there any because usually in the space there's a pirates and the bad people. And is there anything planned for the game that there's maybe a fraction, an enemy, who's really dedicated as a evil in Startlers?
So none of the core factions are inherently evil. There will be some NPCs that are roaming around and navigating in deep space. To clarify, we have security sectors across Star Atlas that starts with a safe zone where everybody lands initially, and there's no PvP there, and people can learn how to play the game and navigate controls. You can explore out into a medium risk zone where there's non-permanent death PvP, and then there's the deep space zone. Now, the way that we're currently ideating around deep space is that you can kind of forfeit your faction selection if you intend to operate exclusively in deep space. So if players will be pirates, and their existence will be exclusively out in deep space, looking for fleets that they can go destroy and capture some of the resources and value from those players. Is there an inherent evil faction? No, but essentially the ability to deselect a faction and operate independently without paying taxes into the economy and just being a true pirate will exist out in deep space.
Oh, that's awesome. I think a lot of people looking for to be the bad guy, So then another question from Gia Alonso, sorry. So there's the two tokens listed at the moment. One is Police and one is Atlas. So what's their utilities, or how do you what's the difference between these two tokens?
Yeah, I would first point anyone who is not very familiar to our game economic white paper that we released back in August. It really goes into extensive detail on the intended functionality and utility of each of the tokens. Atlas is the in-game medium of exchange. It is the currency of the universe. And so all of the income from gaming activity is denominated in Atlas. But as I've said, we also treat every one of these game activities as essentially a micro business. And so they all have associated operating costs as well. That's one of the primary methods that, value or rather utility is driven to Atlas, is that you need Atlas to be able to continue to participate in different gameplay loops. Now, externally, we've also introduced Atlas pairs on our marketplace. So you're able to purchase NFTs, and you'll be able to upgrade ships and purchase components, and all new items that are rolling out, you'll be able to purchase those with Atlas as well. And then we have some interesting design around an Atlas staking model that will be released sometime next year. Polis is not only is it the governance token, it's the political strategy element that people can execute in getting elected to positions inside the game, making decisions that impact entire factions or regions, or exclusive to the DACs themselves. By the way, we do want to facilitate additional tooling for guilds that I think is really exciting. We're building out an entire platform. We have it conceptualized now that will allow the guild not only to register their name with Star Atlas, select from a menu of options in terms of DAC governance, execute no-code deployments, a one-click deployment of these DAO structures or DAC structures, and then ultimately go on and capitalize the operation of a guild through token issuance or their own independent NFT issuance or other models of capitalization, and also assisting with matching the liquidity or capital providers that are out there, like venture capital groups that have been reaching out to us, pairing them directly with guilds. So this is, another major area of emphasis for us going into the future, and Polis token will play a role in all of that. But then in addition to that, Polis really gets to capture ownership of the entire economy of Star Atlas itself. So when I refer to those operating costs that get captured, or an element of operating one of these businesses, all of that Atlas that gets recaptured actually flows into the DAO, and then the DAO itself has the ability to decide how best to utilize those treasury assets. And that could be, simply distributing them out to the stakeholders. It could be using it to engage with us as a studio to build a specific feature that's being requested. They could be burned, or where I think there's going to be some considerable value is actually using the DAO to execute on user growth campaigns. And while that might sound a little bit counterintuitive at first, you actually taking potential proceeds and investing into the game ecosystem, really the optimal outcome for any one of those governors would be to build the largest economy as possible, because all of that economic activity again gets captured by the DAO itself. So it's kind of an ownership over the entire economy.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. And then you already mentioned it. You really focus on guilds, and there's a question from Glenn Voy and also myself. So he is actually a huge fan of Star Atlas and Unix, of course. And his question is, and mine also, like, can we have our own NFTs, like branded with our like design, like our ships with our, banners, because this is what guilds also looking for, like we get our name out there. I mean, that's part, and we love to have, like in other games, a stadium, a Unix stadium, and then of course Unix spaceships.
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is that these types of experiences are going to be rolled out gradually over time. What's very important for us and very important for Danny in particular is that we control the integrity of the asset design at this early stage of development. So, what we're also focused on right now is developing out a standard that will be applicable to anybody who's interested in creating their own tertiary virtual experiences around Star Atlas. And we also have a model for the way that we're going to roll that out, allow people to create their own little sub-communities or large sub-communities for that matter, that might not be directly inside the Star Atlas universe to start, but can be accessed through the game client that we're rolling out. So in a way, it's kind of like a publishing application, like a Steam, where you can access directly the core Star Atlas experience, or you can see a menu of different, again, ancillary or tertiary experiences that you can enter into that are user created. So we'll be facilitating that. Again, major component of the DAC platform that we're looking at building is going to be the ability for you to issue your own digital currency and use that internally. Now, that wouldn't be usable for actions across Star Atlas economy itself, but at least internally as a guild, you could utilize this currency. You could mint your own NFTs. Where I think to your question, where we'll see some first user created content would be in things like skins. Again, assuming that it meets our standards and could be applied to assets that we've created, then we would enable custom skin creation and application to ships and assets that you own.
That's very good to know. Thank you. And then the last question from the community, from Bernadette Lapid. Because VR is also a very huge thing, and I think you already see that in certain areas. I think the gameplay or games are not yet ready enough or advanced enough for VR. Will be in any ways, I believe you already had thoughts about VR, any integration, not now, but like, is there any already, I'm not say concept, maybe it's too early, but I'm pretty sure you have any thoughts about it. Maybe you can give us a quick information about how you think, or how Star Atlas think about VR.
Yeah, we're certainly thinking about it. The feedback that I've gotten internally at this stage is that, it's really the VR technology that isn't necessary, and really the VR head hardware that isn't necessarily in the place that we would want it to be. But given the timeline for development in our case, thinking about a more robust version of the game through multiple modules being released in say 5 years, we think by that point that there will be a bigger opportunity for really immersive VR, seamless VR experiences. The immediate thought right now is that it could be something as simple as, when you're piloting a ship in first person, you can activate VR and kind of view around you. But don't think that in the short term it would be applicable to full operation across the entire universe while wearing a VR headset.
Okay. No, good to know. And I think we had a lot of questions, and I really appreciate you made time for Unix gaming, for our community. And I think I wouldn't say the time is over. I think the time it just started. And we're happy to contribute to the Startless community, to the Startless metaverse, to the whole metaverse as a guild. And thank you for your time, Michael. And if you have any feedback or anything you wanted to say to the community, feel free.
No, this was great, Marco. I really appreciate it, man. This was some great questions, great discussion. We'll do it again for sure. The only thing that I would share is that we are incredibly grateful for the community that exists around Star Atlas right now. It's just so amazing to see all the passion and the enthusiasm come out, and the support come out almost universally across everyone that's participating in Star Atlas. So I hope as we grow in the future, we can maintain this same kind of dynamic of people interaction with us. So, and I know there's probably quite a few more out there who are wondering when score. So very soon, guys, very soon.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and now to our community. I wish you a great day or evening in your place, and all the best. And we excited. We are here to support. So let us know when you need anything. We're ready.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great day there in Bali.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.